Ravinia Summer Festival season has over 100 great concerts between now and September. This 4th of July weekend alone has got 6 amazing shows to pick from, including the music of ABBA on Friday, Daryl Hall and Elvis Costello on Saturday, and the Beach Boys with John Stamos on Sunday. Yes, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers and Uncle Jesse gonna be on the stage together. So pick your show, plan yourself a little picnic, and buy your tickets now only at ravinia.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, whether you love it or hate it, NASCAR week is back. Plus, we're talking our favorite Metra stops and festival tips we learned in June. It's Tuesday, July 2nd. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, Simone.
Good morning, Jacoby. How are you?
Gee, I can't believe I'm already doing the it's July, whatever. Like halfway through the year, G, this thing is blowing by. We've already made hundreds and hundreds of podcast episodes, but we still got half the year to go.
Still got a lot to go. There's a lot to come. A lot of news to talk about, Jacoby.
With the 4th of July weekend coming up and us getting a little bit of a break, is there anything you're excited for? You got any plans? I know yesterday we talked maybe seeing some fireworks, but anything else you got planned for this weekend?
You know, one thing I'm actually going to do this on the 4th, on Thursday, is I'm going to be at a concert in Millennium Park. The Grant Park Music Festival is doing an Independence Day salute. I have a friend who is playing saxophone in that performance. And so I'm going to be out on the lawn, chilling out and enjoying the music, enjoying the vibes. And I'll get a chance to see what downtown looks like ahead of NASCAR weekend, I guess, which will be interesting.
Yeah, you've gotten to avoid the traffic. You haven't driven into it, so you'll get to see the stands being put up. I think I'm gonna head to Calumet Heights, chill at my mom's house, which is even better this year because we have family coming in and they haven't seen that leading into my mother's sub basement where she has like her bar and people smoke cigars. She recently installed a Murphy door. And so when you walk into the basement, it's just a bookshelf now. And it's got all of some of the books that I've given her over the years from the Silver Room. Shout out to the Silver Room at Hyde Park. But secretly you pull on one of the books and it opens up into this hidden Calumet Heights speakeasy. So I'm so excited. One of the great things about being in Calumet Heights for the 4th of July weekend means I will be far away from NASCAR, which is back for its 2nd annual Chicago street race. Simone, I feel like this year we haven't really covered the logistics in the same way because I don't know. I feel like after last year's rainy, traffic inducing lead up and race, people have just kind of accepted NASCAR is here for the next couple of years. And I feel like this one, the lead up to it didn't have nearly as much coverage, criticism, even fanfare in some respects. What are the details heading into NASCAR weekend?
Right. So NASCAR weekend, it's a 2-day race, starts Saturday, July 6th, and then on July 7th on Sunday as well. And the track will be around Grant Park, Buckingham Fountain, sort of loosely. I'm not going to go through all the streets here, but loosely you've got Columbus, Balboa, Jackson, and then around back onto Columbus.
Columbus, Balboa, Lakeshore Drive, back to Columbus, Jackson, back to Columbus, Balboa, Lakeshore, Columbus.
Loosely, if you think, the southern part of Grant Park, Buckingham Fountain, that's the area that you're talking about. And I feel like last year we ourselves at CityCast Chicago, in addition to Chicago media writ large, dedicated so much airtime, so much digital ink to, what all of the logistics, all of the traffic closures, because there have been lots of traffic closures leading up to the race, as they erect stands and do all this other stuff that they have to do. But also sort of the politics of the deal and the optics of the deal. As a reminder, this was something that was announced in sort of mid to late 2022 under former Mayor Lori Lightfoot. It was a deal that kind of came out all of a sudden. It was like, hey, Chicago's going to host a NASCAR street race downtown. We are going to bring this event to Chicago. There were a lot of city council members at the time who were like, what is this? Like, what is this deal? They were very surprised, but it kind of like made its way through the city council. And then it was like, okay, in 2023, we're going to have this race. Last year we had the race we kind of had the race because we had those torrential downpours. We had these big storms that, I think Saturday there were barely, I don't even know if they even got to drive on Saturday like they were supposed to. And on Sunday it severely shortened the race quite a bit. And so cars were sliding around. It was really muddy. It was a real big mess. And I think it also affected some of the musical acts as well last year. This year, the weather forecast is looking better. It's probably going to rain like Thursday, Friday, but Saturday, Sunday so far look okay. We'll see how that changes. So far we don't have any big storms in the forecast. And so we'll see if we actually get a real race.
When we covered the rain last year, not only because of how much it was, but because of that lead up, it felt like literally rained on the parade. Like this music acts had to cancel. The rain didn't go. But even as I just kind of look it up, like rain delays are pretty common. I mean, just in New Hampshire last week, NASCAR had a rain delay. There was a rain delay in Nashville during their Nashville race over the weekend. And so it's not something that is out of the norm for NASCAR and NASCAR fans. But if there are 2 years in which the race isn't able to go full throttle, start to finish, hopefully with no major crashes, no major weather stops, I do think that starts to look like a bit of a sour point or a bit of a loss. I think they're doing a pretty much commendable job in terms of building out the NASCAR week, the number of activations across the city, the number of Chicago influencers who are brought in, the seeming like they understand that maybe Chicago isn't the home of NASCAR fandom 101, but there are ways to bring us in, whether it's a house music festival that's taking place.
Buddy Guy is performing.
A house music celebration, right? You mentioned Buddy Guy. And so the outreach to get Chicagoans more involved, to maybe lower the amount of criticism, to bring more people in seems to be going well. But if all of that results in still a lackluster, rainy race day, I don't know. It feels like it's a net loss in some respects.
The other big part of this, too, is how much money are they actually bringing into the city? Overall, Chicago's tourism arm, Choose Chicago, estimated that last year's NASCAR events brought in $109 million. And that is that number is not like direct profit, really. That number has to do with like hotel occupancy. It has to do with like media value for the city of Chicago. And I'll point out that number is also less than what was predicted. When you get down to like the actual sort of, how much is the city making, how much is the park district making, and how much did we spend, those numbers are even a little bit more disappointing, right? There were estimates that came out that Chicago had spent over $3 million on police overtime and road improvements around the NASCAR event. Meanwhile, the event had only brought in about $620,000, which is a lot less than $3 million. They also, paid the city, $1.8 million in amusement taxes, which is also an interesting one because like you'll see that on your ticket. Like when you go and pay for a ticket for stuff, you'll see that a lot in Chicago. It'll say amusement tax. So that's also like borne by the people who are actually going to the event. So after that happened, and after some of those analyses came out, there was a big question of like, are we going to do this again? We have a new mayor. Is Johnson going to, maintain this deal? What's it going to be? In the fall, Johnson came out and was like, yes, we're welcoming NASCAR again in 2024. And slowly details started to emerge about what a new deal might be. Part of that will include NASCAR paying, in addition to some of the sort of, the park district gets a percentage of tickets and stuff like that. In addition to that, NASCAR is also paying the city a flat $2 million fee, in addition to the $550,000 it was already going to pay. if you do all that math, that still doesn't add up to 3.25 million for police overtime and road improvements. And so that was a question too with the weather last year, as to what degree did that affect the economic impact, the projected economic impact of this event, which I think for the city is really its big selling point, is like, this is going to make us money. This is going to make the city money. And if we get a full race, are we going to actually see sort of the full economic benefit of that, especially as, you know, we have more and more events every summer that seem to close Grant Park, much to the chagrin of the people who live around Grant Park.
I appreciate that they dropped the talking point, or seemingly dropped the talking point, that this is an event that's meant to bring eyes to Chicago, like bring the people who often see Chicago in a certain light, or who criticize Chicago in very, let's just be real, racist ways. Like, this is a way to make our city shine and let people see the best of Chicago. I'm glad they've at least dropped that talking point. Let's just focus on how much money is this going to bring? How can we do this in a way that causes the least amount of headaches for Chicagoans on the ground? And as somebody who is located closer to NASCAR, it hasn't been as big a nuisance. I know that it's impacting traffic, that it's impacting people's commute time. My hope is that the teardown next week, when it starts next week, moves pretty smoothly. And now let's see, is it serving us, even if it's done on its best, having a year of preparation time? What does it look like for the city? Because going into a suspected year 3, the contract was for 3 races with the option for 2 more. We'll see, you know, how the Johnson administration approaches that third year race. So I'm interested to see what the conclusion of this week is, and hoping them a sort of sunny weekend so that our analysis are as clear and critical as possible.
Just the last thing, if you are somebody who's going to be trying to navigate around downtown this weekend, you know, the NASCAR website is actually pretty solid. It's got a lot of resources. It's got maps. And so you should definitely check that out. But the other thing that I learned that I think might be more useful than it sounds is the Office of Emergency Management and Communications, the city's office, actually has an app. And as philosophically, I'm opposed to the like appification of information. Like, it really bothers me that we have to find things in apps. However, I will say I downloaded it.
I do like some good push notifications for an event that I'm attending, though.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, it's got, you know, they do push notifications for events and closures. They have a whole tab dedicated just to the NASCAR street race weekend that includes, you know, where the road closures are, parking restrictions, general event info. And so this is something that I have now downloaded and will be interested to see. There's also other useful stuff, like just like maps and other like emergency communication stuff about weather, cooling centers. So yeah, I'll be curious to see if this is a useful download on my phone.
Again, we want to know, are you excited for NASCAR? Let us know, 773-780-0246. Are you excited? Are you attending? Please let us know via text or voicemail.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, CEO of CityCast. Or, as I can say now, thanks to a few weeks with Babbel, hola, soy David Plotz, el jefe de CityCast. What if in 2024 you got a little bit better every day? When you're learning a new language with Babbel, that's exactly what you're doing. And if Babbel can help me start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks, imagine what you could do in a full year. I got started with Babbel because I realized that my girlfriend, who's a native Spanish speaker, and my son, who's in AP Spanish, were conspiring against me, or I thought they were conspiring against me in Spanish. I wanted to know what they were talking about. And now, thanks to literally just a few weeks of Babbel, I'm starting to be able to eavesdrop. It is rare that something so fun and simple, and Babbel is super fun and very simple, is also so useful. So here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Now, some people might be listening to that first part and thinking to themselves, okay, thank y'all for the reminder. I need to avoid Millennium Park, Grand Park. You know what? I just need to avoid maybe downtown. So I want to get into a further out neighborhood. I want to get out into the burbs a little bit. And so that had us thinking about Metra stops, one of the easiest ways to get out of the city or get to like the far north, far south side of the city. And Simone, I feel like you and I both have some opinions when it comes to Metra stations. So we kind of wanted to power rank or talk about some of our favorite Metra stations in the city. What is one of your favorite Metra stops?
Yeah, it was interesting to think about this. Like, if we had to power rank the best Metra stops across Chicagoland, what are some of the criteria we would look at? What would make some better than others, other than just like, maybe I prefer to visit this town over this town. You know what I mean? And I think the thing to consider is sort of the biggest thing is just like access. Like, what do you have access to as soon as you get off the station? And I think one of the biggest ones for me has got to be the Ravinia stop in Highland Park. I think that is just such an obvious one, such a clear one. I should say Ravinia is a sponsor of this show. But even besides that, you and I have talked about the Ravinia Festival and why we enjoy going.
They didn't sponsor us to say that we like the Metra stop.
No,
next to it.
That we like the Metra stop. I mean, as it turns out, like the whole reason Ravinia exists is because of the train stop. But whatever, I'm here for the synergy. I remember the first time I went to Ravinia, I drove, and to be perfectly honest, it was like kind of frustrating and like finding, especially like afterwards, like trying to find my car where I had parked. And I remember like walking up to the gate and you can see the Metra stop as you walk up to the gate. And I was like, oh, that would have been such a better option. And it's just like, it's like, I don't know. It's like stepping into Wonderland. Like you roll up and you just come upon this like beautiful green field. Like you're right at the gate and you just walk right in and you've got your picnic and everyone's got these like, it's just like a delightful experience. And your Ravinia ticket gets you a free ride on the Metra, which I think is just always a good hack.
I didn't realize just how close the stop was. Like you are coming off of the train. In fact, when you get off the train, if you're going to a concert, the line starts on the train platform. So that transition can be a little bit jarring, that maybe you had a long train ride. Now you're maybe still on the train or on the platform. But I will say getting in, that was probably, I don't know how effective it was because the pat down method was left a lot to be desired. A lot of bags there. They're trying to check bags, move people through quickly, but they get people in pretty smoothly. And so, yeah, that definitely is up there. I'm going to go in the opposite direction towards the far south side. I got a friend who lives in Homewood, and 2 weeks ago, I got on the Metra electric line to go out there. I wasn't paying attention, but I ended up getting off on the Flossmoor stop, which I hadn't done in at least a few years, but this time I really was able to take in just how impressive it is. When you get off at Flossmoor, the station alone has a restaurant and a brewery connected to it.
Oh.
And when you walk off of the platform, right next to it is the Flossmoor Public Library. There is a vintage and vinyl store across the street. There's a market and deli. There's a candy store. There's a beauty supply store. There's a bistro. Beauty and wellness salon is there. A hair salon. An ice cream shop is on the other side of the Flossmoor stop as well. So it was one that as soon as I got off, I was happy that I missed, because unfortunately Homewood, there's really not as much around, but I was able to eat, able to get something to drink, stop in and look around and grab some extra things that I did not need at the vintage and vinyl store. And so, yeah, shout out to the Flossmoor train stop.
I think another aspect of like criteria we can consider here, and when we're like thinking about the best stops, is also just like the stop itself. Does it have like cool public art? Is it well resourced? What does the stop itself look like? And one that I wanted to shout out was actually the Oak Park stop, which sort of shares with the Green Line as well. It's all kind of one area in Oak Park. And I was just there over the weekend, and one of the things that I think is really cool there is they're essentially trying to put murals along the entire train like embankment like across the whole area, and they have like over a dozen, maybe 24 murals now up there, and there's so many of them, and it's essentially like an open call for artists to go who want to go up and put one out there to go do it. And so it is just like a real diversity of art that I think is really cool. I think it's really smart, and I think it adds a lot of life to a stop that could otherwise be very uninteresting. And then also like it's within, Oak Park is small enough that you can then go walk to like the Frank Lloyd Wright studio and home and all that, the whole historic district.
So like 2 blocks, maybe less, like a block off of the Oak Park stop, cafes, crepes, Illuminati's, a gym, Whole Foods. So in addition to the great murals, just like you said, how close you are to like immediately a good time. Not every Metra stop is built equally. Like 115th and Kensington, ain't nothing around there. Maybe you walk to the Pullman stop, the Pullman National Monument. There's literally nothing around certain Metra stops, which is also why I like the one off of 99th Street in Beverly. It right when you get off, again, it lets you right off in the neighborhood, a few blocks from like the farmer's market. And luckily the Metra stop over there, they're all pretty close. So it's like 91st, 95th, 99th. And the 99th stop lets you off by Sanders Barbecue, lets you off by Afro Joe's. There are a few shops right along 99th Street. So I really like the 99th Street, drops you right off in front of Beverly, or drops you right off in the middle of Beverly, and right next to Afro Joe's, which we've talked about plenty of times on the show, how much I love it. And Simone, you could go down there and walk through Mount Hope Cemetery.
Oh, you know how much I love a historic cemetery.
And Oak Hill Cemetery are all connected, so you can go down there and walk through there.
I think, hey, a historic cemetery is essentially just a garden walk with history. So, you know what I mean? Like you can learn some stuff and appreciate the trees.
Last month, we brought y'all a whole week of episodes to get your calendar right for all the Chicago summer festivals. Well, thanks to our sponsor, Revolution Brewing, we're also going to bring you our tips, recommendations, and recaps every week for the rest of the summer. Now, this weekend is mostly filled with the Independence Day celebrations, but Simone, you and I both got out to some of our favorite festivals this past month. What's some of the lessons you learned in June?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is I want to talk about the pros and cons of getting to a festival early, actually.
Okay.
Because this was something I hadn't considered when we first started covering this. But I went to Midsummer Fest in Andersonville, very popular. And number one, I thought the festival started at 10, but it actually started at 11. So I got there at 10:45, thinking I was getting there at like a reasonable time, and turns out nothing was open. Which... the cons of getting to a festival early are a lot of the vendors are like not ready to sell you stuff yet. Like there's still like a lot of the vendors like
I ain't never been that early, G.
But even like by the time like noon rolled around, like some of those vendors were just starting to get ready, like the jewelry and like clothing vendors and stuff. And so that was a little frustrating, but at Midsummer Fest, there was a booth where you could make your own flower crowns with real flowers. It was like it was like $10 to make your own, and they gave you a bundle of flowers, and you could make your own flower crown, and they would stand there and like point out what you should do to make it happen. And it was like beautiful. I made this beautiful flower crown. We got the best flowers because we were there early. We were among the first people to get there. And by the time I left the festival at like, 2 p.m. or so, they had run out of flowers. They had none left. And so all of these people who were walking around with like beautiful flower crowns had them because we got there early. And then you saw other people who just had leaves and no flowers. Yep. And you could tell it's because they got there late. And so that would be my tip moving forward is consider when you're considering when to get there, how long are you going to stay there overall? What kinds of activities are there? And will it behoove you to get there early to get the proverbial flower crown?
Man, one like big pro of good preparation is when I went out to Summer Smash in Bridgeview, I took the orange line from Roosevelt to Midway, had somebody pick me up at Midway. And hey, ignore the route that Google Maps, maybe even Waze, tells you to the festival, because everybody else is looking at that. So I went into the map and I charted out my own path around Bridgeview. So like we were at Midway. So we went south on Cicero to about 73rd, and we basically went around all of the traffic and were able to park like within 3 blocks of the festival, avoided all of the highway traffic, all of the concert traffic and then then we're able to get out the car and cut across a field. And so maybe like take a little time and map out your own, like look at the back streets, look at how can we use main roads? How can we avoid highways? How can we avoid choke points? And really plan out that parking. Both days we got very lucky finding street parking.
Say that is going to be a really good tip for anybody who's going to Riot Fest this year. Of course, Riot Fest has now moved to SeatGeek Stadium in Bridgeview.
North Coast is out there.
Yeah. Some of these suburban fests, like the neighborhood fest, I think I'm always going to try to do public transit all the way. I don't know.
Sure.
I do not want to drive to the neighborhood fest and try to park.
But I'm all for sort of bundling transit. So in that case, it was CTA and then a ride with somebody. I'm good for like the train and then a divvy or a scooter to get me a little bit closer. But yeah, a lot of as I'm looking back on my early June coverage, like I planned out a lot of days where I was getting places really early and staying a long time. And that Sunday, I got out there like 3:00 and was there till like 11:30. There was a rain delay. People had to get evacuated, didn't have the right clothes for that. If you plan on all day, again, remember that backpack that has the extra just in case things with you, because things got pretty wild during that evacuation. So, but we toughed it out for a little over 7-8 hours and made it work. Any festivals you looking forward to this weekend, or any festivals you want to put on people's radar?
Yeah, so there are a few besides, like we said, there's a lot of Independence Day celebrations, which can also be fun. But separate from that, we've also got coming up this weekend the International Festival of Life in Hyde Park, African Caribbean International Festival of Life, which I think was on our radar because it's one of those that is just like always a ball every year. It just like gets so much hype for good reason. And then another one that that's happening this weekend that could be interesting is the Craft Beer Fest that's going on in Lincoln Park. We're obviously talking about our sponsor, Revolution Brewing, and so beer is a part of the summer experience here in Chicago for sure.
I picked up a couple. I picked up the Chicago Pilsner, and then I think I grabbed like a little pack of the lemonades.
Yeah, the Freedom Lemonade. I think if I'm going to go to a beer fest this year, I have my eye on the next one in Ravenswood, just because it's really close to me. Which I also think is later this month. Lots of festivals coming up this month, though. This weekend may be like slightly different because of all the 4th of July stuff, but like, make no mistake, July is going to be chock full of festivals and neighborhoods to explore this year.
No, it's going to be a good time. Every week, we'll let you know festivals that we went to, the tips we picked up. I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alisea. I appreciate you making time.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Bookmark our website, chicago.citycast.fm. That's the best place to keep track of all of the things CityCast Chicago has available, including some very helpful articles, some amazing neighborhood guides, and you can subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago. Of course, I got some good news for you. Pride Southside kicks off this Saturday at DuSable Museum in Washington Park. They got 2 stages, over 25 performers, a bunch of activations, and more. Check the show notes for more information. As always, we appreciate you for listening. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace. It seems like the outreach to get Chicagoans to be more excited, to feel...
Oh, well, there they are. They're here. They're
right.